And now, here's Mike Muse with the political news.
So let's get right to it and meet the candidates.
That completes the opening statements.
We're going to get right to it.
On Sway in the Morning.
Hey, citizens, listen. Every single Monday and Wednesday, we do political news with Mike Muse. Mike Muse is here in studio. You could always hit him up at I Am Mike Muse if you have additional questions after this segment. But Mike Muse, it's been a busy weekend politically. I saw all kind of things going on. I even saw, speaking of comedians, Andrew Schultz is here. He's our special guest co-host today. But I even saw a picture of 5 former presidents trending, and I saw Donnell Rawlings insert himself in that picture as well as a comedian and put himself up there. What was going on with these 5 presidents that I saw?
Well, Heather B., I can't speak to Donnell Rawlings.
Okay.
What I can talk about, though, Heather B., I really want to use this to set up the tone for our conversation we're going to have this morning about political news. And just what was interesting about it was the 5 presidents, living presidents, they got together to really raise money for the hurricane relief efforts that are happening in Texas and Florida and the great U.S. Virgin Islands, as well as Puerto Rico. It was a concert that was held in College Station, Texas. And Heather B., they actually raised $31 million for that effort.
Wow.
And so here's a clip from the president and what they had to say.
All of us on this stage here tonight could not be prouder of the response of Americans when they see their neighbors and they see their friends. They see strangers in need. Americans step up.
First of all, I'm thrilled to be able to introduce 39, 42, and 44 to one of the finest universities in the United States. I, too, am here to urge you to give to this fine fund, and I want to thank all the volunteers, but I'm here for another reason. I speak for the folks right here when I say we really admire and love George H.W. Bush.
So presidents refer to each other by number? It sounds like a fat girl, 39, 40. What is that?
No, it's easier to do it that way just because you had all of them on stage. So you had President Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
You had President Herbert Walker Bush, which is George Bush's father. You had President Clinton. Then you had President Obama. And then you had President Bush, who we just heard from.
Got it.
What was interesting about that, Heather B., is that we witnessed something that we are not seeing anymore in the civility of our political discourse. And it really was such a powerful imagery for me to see almost a passing of the torch to each other. Mm-hmm. Those were men who had to pass from Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican, and there was always this civility that was passed down. And what we've seen is, even during their time period, our splits were all about partisanship. Our splits were about policy. What we're seeing now, Heather B., is cultural wars, and what we see now is identity politics, and that's really is becoming this rift amongst our political discourse that is really unfortunate. And so seeing those 5 presidents up there who didn't get along, who beat each other in campaigns, who definitely had to pass a torch, they were still very respectful to each other. They were very civil in the discourse, and even how they led their parties, how they led the Democratic parties and how they led the Republican parties. But we're not seeing that anymore, Heather. And so what we saw over the weekend was the GOP Civil War in full display. And it was in full display with Steve Bannon. As we all know, Steve Bannon was a chief strategist within the White House. He was also CEO of President Trump's campaign, who has now since left, and now he's returned back to Breitbart. So he was actually at the California GOP convention over the weekend, and he had some really harsh words and rhetoric to say about the Senate Republicans, about the Republican establishment. As we talked about in this show consistently, Steve Bannon is on a mission to really dismantle the Republican Party. And he actually said something about Senator John McCain, and he actually talked about him being a war hero. He talked about all the great things about John McCain, but then, Heather B., he went on to call John McCain a plain senator, and to which the crowd responded. And there's a tweet from the LA Times reporter Seema Mehta, and she, quote, the crowd says, quote, the crowd at the CAGOP 17 just booed George W. Bush and John McCain, quote, hang him, one man yelled about McCain. So all this rhetoric now and the divisiveness that we're seeing from these cultural wars is now permeating into our political discourse, if you will, to where people are actually at conventions actually talking about hang a senator. So that is the level that we are now. And so if you put that in the backdrop of what we saw at the 5 presidents, now in the backdrop of what we saw actually at the California convention, but it doesn't stop there. So McCain actually added his own diss, if you will, to President Trump when he spoke on C-SPAN last night.
One aspect of the conflict, by the way, that I will never, ever countenance is that we drafted the lowest income level of America and the highest income level found a doctor that would say that they had a bone spur. That is wrong. That is wrong.
And what he's saying is he was brought on C-SPAN to really recount what was happening within the Vietnam War. And so that was a diss to President Trump, who had 5 deferments of war because his excuse was he had bone ailments and bone spurs. And so here we go, seeing a Senator McCain, a U.S. senator, attacking the president's record by drafting and dodging the war. So all that was happening this weekend just on that type of level.
Wow.
But then, Heather B., we bring it into the White House. And so what we saw from on Friday was Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is a press secretary for the White House, was in response to what was happening in Nigeria, what is response to what happened to Sergeant LaDavid Wilson, all that conflict that happened with General Kelly coming out and giving a talk at the press briefing. What General Kelly did was he responded to Congresswoman Wilson and talked about this supposed hyperbole that she made up, that she used this moment in order to promote her receiving federal aid in order to name the FBI building after that. What we found out was that actually wasn't true because video has surfaced. But here's what here's what Press Secretary Huckabee Sanders had to say about that.
General Kelly said he was stunned that Representative Wilson made comments at a building dedication honoring slain FBI agents about her own actions in Congress, including lobbying former President Obama on legislation. As General Kelly pointed out, if you're able to make a sacred act like honoring American heroes all about yourself, you're an empty barrel. If you don't understand that reference, I'll put it a little more simply. As we say in the South, all hat, no cattle.
And that was a diss, Heather B., to actually the Congresswoman Wilson, who was known for wearing these very extravagant hats.
In honor of her grandmother, right.
Exactly. So that was a dick to her. That was on Friday. On Saturday morning, before we get to take callers, on Saturday morning, President Trump tweeted also too in response to Congressman Wilson. And his tweet said, quote, "I hope the fake news media talks about the wacky Congressman Wilson and that she, as representative, is killing the Democratic Party." That was a morning of the funeral of Sergeant Wilson. And up to this date, there still has been nothing on his Twitter regarding the Sergeant Wilson himself or about the
Sergeant
funeral.
Johnson or Sergeant?
Sergeant Johnson. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction, Sergeant Johnson.
Wow.
That's why I wanted to start off with the 5 presidents in terms of civility that will be witnessed versus what we've seen on the discourse just over the weekend.
Welcome to Political News this Monday.
President Donald Trump tweeted 7 minutes ago, "I have a very respectful conversation with the widow of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, or LaDavid Johnson, whatever, and spoke his name from the beginning without hesitation." Is that Lieutenant? What is LA? LaDavid. Okay, yeah. He said he spoke to her. And he mentioned his name from the beginning without hesitation. That's what he just wrote.
Well, obviously there's some sort of conflict and between what this conversation was about, what happened when he did make this phone call to the family. The 5 presidents, the 5 former presidents, is it wrong to ask and wonder what Mike Muse, should 45 have been there? Is that something that the current president should have been a part of that to help with? Is that normal? Is that, I don't know, is that protocol? That's
a great question. So the five living former presidents got together to raise money for a nonprofit in order to raise money for the relief efforts.
Okay.
So generally a sitting president wouldn't engage in those type of activities. To be fair, President Trump did videotape an audio clip of him giving his remarks to the former presidents that were there and also thanking them for what they've done for the hurricane relief efforts. And it was played at the concert.
Okay. 888-742-3345. Citizens, now is your time to speak on Political News. You want to comment on any of these stories? Ask Mike Muse questions. He is here. 888-742-3345.
Yeah. Now more of the daily news on Sway in the Morning.
Mike Muse is here, citizens, with the political news, and he's covered a lot. Just a quick rundown of what he covered about the 5 former presidents, 5 living presidents. Well, 6, because we have to include 45 as they mention their numbers. I love this. I'm going to start referring to people by number. 5 living presidents at a college station in Texas for the One America Appeal concert. Steve Bannon, McCain, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Mike Muse has covered so much this morning. We want to give you opportunity, citizens. Andrew Schultz is here as well as our special guest co-host to chime in. If you have any comments on anything that we spoke about this morning, let's talk about it. I got Cassidy on the line, calling from our nation's capital. Cassidy, good morning, calling in from D.C. How you doing?
Hey, Cassidy.
Hey, Cassidy.
Good morning, and it's Chastity, like the belt, Chastity.
Oh, Chastity. I'm sorry. That's a little mistake that Kalani made. It's all good. But I mentioned
No problem.
I mentioned
caller.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for calling. You're a citizen of Sway in the Morning. I'm mentioning the fact that you're in D.C. because our special guest co-host here, Andrew Schultz, will be in D.C. on January 18th.
Hey.
So for
Nice.
1/18/18.
For you.
Yeah, he'll be at the Improv, all right? So make sure you go through. Chastity. What do you want to say?
Yes. I wanted to chime in on maybe the reason why Trump tweeted is because the wife of LaDavid, she was on Good Morning America, and they were talking to her and asking her questions about what happened in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that Trump was fumbling over the words, trying to figure out what to say to her, and he couldn't remember his name. So she said that was making her more upset of him fumbling around, and he's saying that he had to figure out the name of the soldier because the report was in front of him.
Oh, okay. So you're referring to the tweet that DJ Wonder read for us to say what the president just tweeted out a few moments ago, which was that he mentioned his name, right, Wonder?
He said, he mentioned his name from the beginning.
Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up for us, Chastity. You are a citizen of Sway in the Morning. Now, Debbie wanted to make a comment about the tweet as well. Debbie, how you doing? Calling in from St. Louis?
Yeah.
Hey, Debbie.
I'm calling in because when you were talking about it and you were talking about the names and everything, DJ Wonder came on and started talking about the tweet, but he was very dismissive, and he didn't even know how to pronounce the guy's first name.
Good thing I'm not president, I tell you.
It's LaDavid is his name.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
And I just think that you said L.A. whatever, and that was extremely rude and disrespectful. And I just think
Hold on. He did ask how to pronounce the name, and I don't think it's ever disrespectful to ask. If you don't know something, inquire.
True, but when you said it, you said L.A. whatever, like you just dismissed the guy.
I'm not sure if he abbreviated something on the tweet. That's why I said it like that. Excuse me if it came off wrong, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Debbie, for your call. We appreciate your input. You're a citizen as well on Sway in the Morning.
That's why I'm off Twitter.
Exactly.
That's the exact reason why I'm off Twitter.
Because
she went into that interaction trying to be offended. Right?
What?
She projected her intent. The intent was, why is DJ Wonder trying to disrespect this person? Instead of, maybe DJ Wonder doesn't understand if LA is short for lieutenant, which I don't know why it would, because it wouldn't be, or some other. I don't think your intent, I try to judge people by intent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think your intent was to disrespect a slain soldier. You think that's his intent?
Well, here's what was good about what she did. She called up,
right,
and she asked her question, you know, and she got clear on now. And
Did
Wanda
she ask a
apologized.
question?
Well, Wanda
She
apologized.
made an accusation.
Well,
She
Wanda
didn't argue back.
Well, Wanda apologized, and see, this is about the resolution of it all. What do you want to say, Wanda? I'm sorry.
Nothing. I
Oh,
was
you
gonna say
raised
go to line 1, HB. That's what I'm telling you.
You telling me to go to line 1? Okay.
I just think that we can never chastise a question. And I think that's a problem right now, is that we are more critical of ignorance than we are of like a confidence in being wrong. If you don't know the answer to something and you ask, don't criticize somebody. Say thank you. I appreciate you wanting clarity.
Right. Well, that's what
sarcastically.
What I wanted to say though too. This is good that we have this platform here that people can call and it can be resolved though. Unlike Twitter, you don't get to hear people's voices. You imagine what the voices sound like, and then you decide what the tone and everything is going to be there.
But also too, to give context to that, what the caller was just mentioning was in reference to what the country and the temperament and the tone of this conversation has been for the last 7 days. The conversation has been that there has not been enough respect that has been given to the fallen soldiers, really,
yeah.
but in particular to this soldier, which we're talking about, which is LaDavid Johnson. And so that has been the whole question at hand, which is why we're even having this conversation, because there has been a felt of respect that's been given to him from the president or others, including from General Kelly, and also too from the press secretary Huckabee Sanders. And so that's what she is referring to in terms of the sensitivity of the nature of the subject, unfortunately.
Well, Debbie and Wanda came to a happy conclusion and resolution. Both are citizens of Sway in the Morning. All right, Wanda said call 1. Okay, line 1. Kevin is calling from Sacramento. Good morning, Kevin. How you doing?
Oh, you know it's Evan, not Kevin.
Oh, gosh. What does this say, Wanda?
It says Kevin. This is number 2. Strike 2 today, Kalani. Come on now.
It says Kevin. I'm sorry. I'm so apologetic, Evan, that I don't know your name and where you call or your phone number, huh?
Life ain't fair. I don't know when everybody started thinking life was fair, but everybody quit stop. Jesus Christ, quit being little bitches, everybody. You know, God. Like all you rappers say, why you always hating? Why are all the rappers hating on Donald Trump? They're the mogul of what they want to be. They want to be rich. They want to be famous. They want to be in the spotlight. Quit hating on the man. Let him do his job. All the reporters need to go away for 1 month and see what the tone is.
Thank you, Evan, for your call. You're a citizen of Sway in the Morning.
Yeah, it is an interesting point. How different is Trump from like your average gangster rapper?
We got Mike on the line from Texas. Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
It's an interesting point.
Yo, what up? What up? Shout out to the last couple of ass clowns y'all had on the phone, yo.
You better talk about it, Mike.
My question is for Mike Muse, though.
What up, sir?
It's like, hey, why do you think the Democratic Party as a whole won't just take the low road when it comes to Trump and these Republicans? Clearly, they don't give a fuck about shit but whatever it is that they got going on. This is clear to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm down here in Texas. It's still fucked up, but that's an act of God. But just shit in general. Everything just seemed... I mean, like, I wasn't living in sunshine when Obama was in office, but this shit is just like a headache every day.
You're referring to a couple of things. You're probably mentioning maybe the Russian investigation. They're hands off of that. They're letting investigator Mueller handle that investigation. There is bipartisan hearings between the House and the Senate, between the Senate and the Senate Democrats, Republican Democrats, the House Republican Democrats, and the House Republicans and the House Democrats. In regards to the policies that are at play and at hand right now, the Democrats actually are in the minority, and so it makes it really difficult for them to actually push forward and set the agenda for policy. So that's up to Speaker Paul Ryan as well as Senate Majority Leader McConnell. They set the agenda for that tone. What they're trying to do is trying to navigate in terms of parliamentary procedures, in terms of how they can interject the policies that they would like to bring to the floor to kind of create more bipartisan appeal and effect. And so they are also too trying to figure themselves out too, brother. So they also have their own civil war that's at play. You have the Sanders camp, you have the Clinton camps, you have the Obama camp. And they're all, and when I mean camp, I mean the supporters of all wanting to take the Democratic Party in different directions. And so the Democrats are also too trying to find their identity in this political discourse that we have right now.
Who do you think is best for this election coming up?
In the sense of what election? The midterm election? Or?
No. I mean 2020. Like, which camp do you think is would have the best success against Trump?
Well, it's too early to decide. I don't know who the candidates are running. I don't know which candidates haven't.
Which ideology, though?
I don't think any ideology. I think when you elect a president campaign, you don't necessarily elect for ideology. It depends upon what's happening in the nature and the background of our society at the time, and what people feel are more important. During the 2000s, during the 9/11, it was about security, and so they voted on who they feel is more secure. Around 2008, it was about finance and the markets, and who do we feel is more stable to lead us out of that economic recession. So going into 2016, it was became about identity politics. So it's more about what did you identify with. I don't know what the theme of 2020 is going to be. We're too far. That's too far down the road in order to predict what the electorate is willing to vote for or would not vote for.
So we got to see what the country really cares about in that moment, and then whoever addresses that the best way.
Well, if you're interested, Andrew, billionaire Mark Cuban announced that he may run for president in 2020 as a Republican, and he said that you need somebody who can connect to people and relate to people, and he thinks that he can qualify on each of those.
I think that he'd have the best chance. I'll be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever have like a politician be president again.
I said that.
You did?
Yeah.
I really, I don't, why do you think?
Because it's all going to shit. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, not to joke about I know you were making a joke about it, but
no, I'm being dead serious.
No. I'm saying before about what's the difference between like rappers and now that this is real life,
right,
and I think we all kind of approach music as some form of entertainment. It's entertainment, and I think people got caught up in thinking I'm going to elect this person that's famous and that's successful as a businessman to run this country, and something has gone awfully wrong just in terms of what you meant on social media, what we started this show off talking about this morning, what people are saying, how comfortable people are with making some kind of with the statements that they're making, and nothing is being done about it. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that you can have no experience and hold a position like this. Like, I think that's nuts. Now, what side of the fence you on, that's your business, but I'm just overall, I promise you, Andrew, it was harder to get a job here at Sirius XM than it was. They went through everything, and it's amazing to me how now you could just say I got money and people know who I am and I'm going to run for president. I just personally think that's nuts. So Kanye, Mark Cuban, Oprah, God bless all of y'all.
I wish Oprah
will not.
That would be.
You vote for Oprah?
Of course.
There you go, Andrew.
Why would I not vote for Oprah? But I think Oprah. Actually, I think Oprah would be incredibly successful. I don't know why that she doesn't want to.
She said her past was too sketchy.
Well, that is something real. Like, and I think that's why Cuban doesn't want to do it. Because I was speaking to a guy who was like close with Cuban. He worked for the Mavericks for a while, and he's like, I'm not sure he wants to open up his personal life.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to happen, especially against Trump, right? Like, if Cuban had some, like, wild night at a frat party in college where, like, a dude, gave him a hickey, that picture's coming out.
But that's not. But do we realize, are you saying our current first lady has nudes? Like, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't. It doesn't matter
but that's
anymore.
dope, though, right? Because now all the girls that got nudes feel like they could still be first lady.
I don't. First lady,
right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't
Finally,
that make
they don't
you
have to be ashamed anymore. They see someone that looks like them in the White House. It's great.
First of all, show me your nudes if you look like Melania. I wanna see them immediately. Now, that being said,
hit him up at Andrew Schultz if you got nudes.
It's an interesting situation that we got, though.
I don't think it's going good, Andrew.
I'm not saying it's going good, but I think it's interesting in that, like, I think if you actually really think about it, Obama was the first person to come around that had very little political history, right? Like, Obama was how many terms as a
community planner and a senator, right?
But how many terms as a senator, right?
It was his first term when he
first term senator, right? And I even remember thinking like, oh, dude, this guy's incredible. But wait one more election, and then go for it, right? But then he went for it, and I realized, wow, the fact that you didn't vote on, you didn't have that many major votes means there's less to hold against you. Right? When you're like a Bernie Sanders senator, right? Bernie's voted for things for like, 40 years, 30 years or something like that. So now you can go back in history and pick little things. Oh, he voted for the war. Oh, he voted for this gun regulation. Oh, he voted for this for Planned Parenthood. Now there's tons of stuff in this. Trump has no history. Trump has no history at all. Obama had very little history. And a Mark Cuban will have no history.
The difference with that, though, is that, and I'm glad you guys were talking about this. So I want to talk about it from two different perspectives. One about the businessman perspective and the non-political aspect of it. The current president of France, Macron, he is what individuals wanted when they talk about an outsider. He's what they wanted to talk about a businessman. He's a businessman who actually ran for president of France, but he's a businessman who has the sophistication to understand with debt policy and how that works. He's actually playing the middle of the road, which is what when people say they want a businessman or when people say they want somebody outside of politics, that's what they want. Somebody can kind of thread the needle down the middle of the road, but he has sophisticated understanding of the policies at play here. Now, when you mention Obama, yes, he was a community organizer, and that's nothing to laugh at or to smile at. He was also a state legislator within the state of Illinois, too, so he was already a legislator, so he already knew how to legislate. Yeah. But the difference was this election, President Trump was not challenged at all in any of the debates, nor was in his interviews. The press took it as a joke, if you will, which they admitted to, that they took it as a joke. They didn't take his candy seriously. When they asked Secretary Clinton, she got the tough questions. She got the tough questions in the debate. She got the tough interviews. Her interview was more about policy when it came to that. They let Trump off. Now, when it came to the primaries in 2008 between Secretary Clinton and President Obama, that was nothing but debates. That was about policy. We didn't get into identity. 2008 was not about about identity or culture. Unfortunately, 2016 was about identity and culture and entertainment. So we saw what the sophistication of President Obama could understand with policy. We actually saw during the healthcare debate that happened on C-SPAN Live, President Obama brought all the senators from the Republican side, the Democrats in the Senate and the House to the table live to discuss the discourse about the Obamacare before the bill came into play. We have yet to see President Trump discuss policy from an in-depth perspective.
Yeah, I don't think he understands policy.
So that's why we have to be careful in terms of how we talk about.
Yeah, but I don't think he understands policy at all. I will say one thing, and I think there are a lot of different things that played into the election, but there were two candidates that came out of nowhere in this last election. And they had very similar policies or like very similar talking points, right? It was Trump and it was Sanders. And both of them harped on one thing. It wasn't, I guess you could chalk it up to identity, but in a lot of ways it was just middle class jobs, right? Both of them were like, we need the middle class to go back to work. And that's all they really spoke about is back to work, back to work, back to work. And I think sometimes we downplay the importance of that in this election. Hillary kind of ran on I'm not this guy, but if you're somebody who wants to go back to work and this guy and Trump is going, I'm going to get you back to work. And then she's going, I'm not him. Who else are you going to vote for? Right? Like you even said earlier, Heather, remember you were like, I don't care about Twitter. I care about these bills coming in. You know, the bank wants me to pay my mortgage. I got to pay that mortgage. I'm sure there are voters out there who voted for both Sanders, like myself, but also voted for Trump. I think there were Sanders-Trump voters who were like, listen, whoever's going to open up this factory, I'm voting for you.
I don't believe in any of them.
Right.
I was a Bernie girl.
Right.
And when that didn't happen for me, I felt like I had to go with the quote-unquote lesser of two evils.
Right.
So I voted for Hillary.
Same with me.
I didn't agree with the message that was being sent from what I saw President Trump spewing out there. I just think we just got really divided. And I think somebody needs to understand policy if you're going to take on the job of president of the United States of America. I don't give a damn what else. I don't need to know policy, but the president does, you know? So that's my thing with it. I think it's now become something, people watch those debates for his one-liners. I think they watch for the comedy show. And I think they watch for the train wreck. And I think somewhere we just got lost. But you know what? Last night was football, and tonight is Monday Night Football.
Yes.
And we got to get to these scores and everything like that. Mike Muse, thank you so much for your political news. People can hit you up where?
At I am Mike Muse, MUSSME on Twitter and Instagram.
And Andrew Schultz gave up Twitter, but he gonna hang out with us today as our special guest co-host, and he gonna talk these scores with me. More up next, right here. Let's get it.